Hello, I'm Paul Garner and I'm here today at the wonderful Frensham Great Pond in Surrey. We've got two aims really for this film. We're going to try and catch some big rudd tonight. This lake's very well known for its rudd fishing, and then tomorrow morning we're going to try and catch a nice net of tench. I've only fished this lake a couple of times over the years, but fortunately I've got an ace card, and that's my good friend Duncan Sharman, who's fished the lake for nigh on 30 years. So he's setting up around the other side of the lake at the moment, so I'm just off to join him. So join us around there and we'll see what he's up to. Well, so we're down in Duncan's swim now. I can see you've just about got yourself under shelter there, Dunks.
Nearly.
Yeah. So why have you brought us around to this side of the lake? I mean, it's a big old bit of water, this. So what's so special about this swim?
Well, as you got, 60 acres of lake here, and the first thing I've noticed is the direction of the wind. The wind's pushing down here. We've got a nice southerly coming across here. So I've always, from a young age, followed the wind. My dad told me to follow the wind. So, that's where the fish are going to be. The other thing is I keep in touch with the lake quite a bit. I walk the dog round and, just talk to people. And generally, the bridle path swims are just not fishing very well.
That's sort of the other side across that far bank.
It's in slightly deeper water. Some years it fishes, some years it does, it doesn't, and the last 2 years it's been really tough. So we've come into this swim, and as you can see, it's a nice kind of social swim. Anybody that's come in here will look at this and probably go in here. It's quite often, an angler putting bait out there, so the fish are used to a bit of bait, whether it's boilies or pellet, or in our case today probably a few pints of maggots. So I'm pretty confident. It's not going to be easy. It's a difficult year, but you were
saying it's been fishing quite tough, so we're not going to bag up, but we should be all right.
Yeah, I think we'll get a few fish.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, I better get my barrow unloaded and get myself organised.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's just run through how I'm going to attract some fish into my swim. Initially, I'm going to wade out, put a marker in the lake at about probably 70-80 yards, ball in some ground bait. This is just the liver and garlic ground bait, along with some finer crumb, and in there are some particles like some hemp and some of the mini salted mix. That's going to get some tench rooting around, flying some maggots up in the water, and hopefully the rudder be, flying in on top. I'm also going to go out just with some particles and spray it with one of these spoons, along with probably a pint of maggots. And what I'm going to fish on the actual hook is maggot. Maybe plastic if we get too many small fish, but predominantly maggot popped up off the bottom. And I'm going to do that at 5 o'clock this evening, and then go and do it again at 5 o'clock in the morning.
My approach is going to be fairly similar to Duncan's really. It's based around ground bait, and then with a few additions to it to sort of spice it up and hopefully hold the fish. So because Duncan was good enough to mention that on the phone to me the other day that there's a lot of small fish about at the moment, so instead of bringing live maggot, I had a look in the freezer, and I always keep any odds and sods of dead maggots that I have left over from sessions, freeze them down and leave them for days like today really. So I've brought a few pints of dead maggots to go in, and they're often better for bigger fish really. The small fish tend to go for the movement, and the dead maggot tends to sit on the bottom, and bigger fish as they come through the swim will pick those up, no problem at all. I like plenty of hemp, not so much for the rudd but for the tench. Having watched tench underwater and filmed them feeding on hemp, they don't really eat it, but they're definitely attracted by the smell, and it will keep them in the swim on revisiting spots for a long time. So I'll put a bit of hemp in as well, and to add a bit more food value to the ground bait. Again, it's quite a rich lake this, but we're expecting quite a few fish of all sizes and all species to come through the swim. I want a bit of food in there, so I'm going to add quite a lot of micro pellet mix to it. And then finally, something I'm going to try, which I've never tried before, and that's in the mix I'm going to make up for this evening for the rudd, is I'm just going to put a handful of riser pellet in there. The idea being that will go into my feeder mix, and so as the feeder mix goes out and it starts to dissolve, break down, I'll get a few of the riser pellets starting to come off of it. And hopefully, rudd being mid-water feeders, that will give a bit of extra attraction for them as bits break off and float up in the water. So, don't know whether it'll make any difference, but it seemed like a good idea, so we'll give it a go. I wish I had half the enthusiasm that Duncan's got, but I must admit the idea of wading out in the keks doesn't really appeal. So I'm going to use the more traditional route, stick a marker float out and then ball the ground bait in with one of the method blasters, which is a tactic I use a lot. Really underused tool, brilliant bit kit. So yeah, and hopefully I might stay a bit drier. See how we go.
Well, welcome to Frensham Great Pond. It's a 60-acre, relatively shallow lake, average depth about 6 foot I would say out here, run by Farnham Angling Society. It's a venue that I first fished when I was in my late teens, and my first fish was a tench caught on a strawberry boilie that was side hooked under a float, cast at some bubblers. But over the years it's the big rudd that have really kind of like captured my interest, and I've been fortunate enough to catch rudd to 3-5 out of here, and remember one or two afternoons when I caught 22 twos just in 2 afternoons float fishing with sprayed maggot and waggler. You know, what a great way to catch fish. It's mainly tench as well nowadays. My best is 8.2. I know a friend had a 9.6. You know, you get reports of 10s, but it's generally the average size of tench is £5. Some carp in here, a good doubles water for pike. Biggest perch I had was 3-4. There's a few eels in here if you want to put the time in, but they are hard. It's a great lake because you can catch on the float and the feeder, and when they're having it you can really catch big bags of tench and rudd. If they're not having it though, you can catch nothing. Let me just run through the actual rig that I've caught all these big rudd from Frensham, whether it be summer or winter. It doesn't change at all, and it's just something that I've actually kind of like just modified, and I can't really feel that I can beat this. If I go through the components initially, I've just got a few of these tungsten clingers just behind the hook link and the feeder, just to pin everything down on the bottom. So just running down, got a couple of float stops, and then we got a little micro swivel there, a hook link sleeve just to create a boom and, you know, stop the tangles, and a short 2 to 3 inch hook link, size 16 hook. And on this rig I've got a small piece of foam, and that just pops the bait up off the bottom and puts it right in the sight of a rudd. And at the bottom I've got this feeder that casts really, really well. You don't want to be struggling, you know, against a side wind late at night or in the middle of the night. And the other rig that I'm using is exactly the same, but because I know there's some small fish here, instead of the yellow foam, what I've done is I've just tied in a small hair, and I'm going to put a rubber caster, and that just takes out, you know, makes it neutral buoyancy really, and if a rudd comes down and tries to suck that up off the bottom, it's going to fly up in its mouth a lot easier.
As the light levels started to fall, a few fish started hopping over our baited area. It wasn't long after when we started getting indications on the bobbins, and soon after that the first fish was on. I just missed a really good bite, and then Duncan's had an absolute screamer, and he's got a fish over there. And while we're watching him play his, the rod that I've just recast has gone off as well.
That's what we come here for. Massive great bars of gold. Get me rods back out, and then hopefully now they're here we'll get a few more.
As often happens with rod fishing, we've just had mad 15 minutes, if that really. I missed a bite, and then literally seconds later Duncan was into a fish, and then while he was playing his one, my other rod went off and I was into one. And yeah, and that was it. I've missed another bite since then, but the shoal seems to have moved on.
I don't know, what was yours? Just around the £2 mark?
Just
slightly under.
Slightly under, yeah.
And mine's what you call a French and Beauty at 210, which is a good fish for here. So we've got to be happy with that, because we know it's fishing hard. So hopefully we'll get a few more.
That's it. Well, that's part one done. Anyway, one tick in the box. We've caught the rod that we came for, so we've still got the tench to go in the morning. So we'll slip these pair back, and hopefully we might have another rod or two during the night, and then get up bright and early for the tench.
Absolutely.
Some of the best fish we've had this morning. Several over £2.5. What was the biggest you had, Duncan?
212.
212. How about that? That's absolutely fantastic. You know, not many places you can catch fish like that. Absolute bars of gold. So we're going to put these ones back now and see if we can get on and catch some tench. So it's time for part two now of our Frensham challenge, and that's try and catch some tench. Rod fishing went really well, so fingers crossed we can get a few nice tench in the net as well now. So just talking about my tench tactics, they vary a little bit from venue to venue. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to fish with the 10mm Tangerine Dream boilies. I know from a couple of times I've been here in the past that the tench here respond really well to boilie, and just being a bit bigger bait, there's a lot of small rod in here, so I know that when I put it out, if I get a bite, it's going to be either a big rod or much more likely it's going to be a decent tench. So one of those, and just on a really short hook length. I mean, that's only about 4 inches. Got a couple tied up with rubber casters as well. Great tactic on lakes where the tench are much more switched onto natural baits and not so much onto boilie, but here I know I'm just going to stick with boilie. With that, I've mixed up a bit more of my ground bait. I got up first thing this morning and put out another 20 balls of ground bait. Lots of hemp in it, lots of dead maggot, lots of sort of small particles really to get the tench in and grubbing around looking for more food. And because it's fairly clear here, we've got a little bit of weed, you know, maybe 3 or 4 inches on the bottom in places, but it's pretty clear. So what I'm going to do is fish with a little method feeder loaded with ground bait. Recast it fairly regularly, because a lot of the time the tench will home in on it straight away. If it was a lot weedier, like some of the other gravel pits I fish where the weed can be really bad, method feed or any kind of feeder really can be a problem, because it's going to catch in the weed. What I do in that kind of situation is I'll take the method feeder off and replace it with an inline lead, and then just use a little PVA stick of either ground bait or maggots or whatever, crushed up boilies. And that will give me my sort of concentration of feed by the hook bait instead, and because it's a lead rather than a feeder, it comes through the weed a lot easier and you're going to land more fish. So those are my tactics, all nice and simple, nothing complicated. Rods are back out and fishing again, and hopefully the tench will come along, and by the look of it, Duncan's already into something which could well be a tench. Well, I love it when a plan comes together. After all those brilliant rudd last night and this morning, we finally had some tench action. Took a couple of hours to start getting bites, but then it's been pretty fast and furious since then. Thanks, Duncan, for putting us on some brilliant fish.
You're welcome. I
Yeah.
mean, if you haven't fished this place, you are really missing something. It is a fantastic venue, you know, just in terms of scenery and the fish that, you know, that thrive in here.
Yeah, it's
And those rudd are
absolutely
just, you know, you can see why they're my favourite fish, can't you?
So we'll get these two back,
Yeah.
and then we'll get ourselves sorted out and hit the road. Thanks for watching.